What happens when one of Hollywood's most passionate actors sits down with a talk show host determined to humiliate him on live television? You're about to witness one of the most uncomfortable interviews in late-night history, where professionalism vanished and a legendary actor reached his breaking point. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert was supposed to be a routine promotional stop for Nicolas Cage, who was making the rounds to discuss his latest film project. What began as a standard celebrity interview quickly spiraled into something far more hostile. Colbert, known for his sharp wit and political commentary, seemed to have a different agenda that night, one that would spectacularly backfire. As Cage walked onto the set, the audience erupted in applause. He waved, flashed his trademark smile, and took his seat across from Colbert. The host shuffled his blue cards, that familiar smirk playing across his face. But there was something different in his eyes, something that suggested this wouldn't be the usual light-hearted exchange viewers expected. "Nicolas Cage, everybody!" Colbert announced with his practiced television enthusiasm. "Now, Nicolas, I have to ask, and I think America wants to know, do you ever watch your own movies and think, 'Wow, I really went overboard there?'" The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Cage's smile faltered slightly, but he maintained his composure. "Stephen, I think every actor has moments where they look back and see things they might have done differently," he said calmly. "But I stand by my choices. I believe in committing fully to every role." Colbert leaned forward, elbows on his desk. "But surely you realize that some of your performances have become, well, let's call them internet memes. The way you deliver certain lines, the facial expressions, it's all become quite the joke online." "I'm aware of the internet's fascination with my work," Cage replied, his tone sharpening, "but I've never been interested in playing it safe. I'd rather swing for the fences and occasionally strike out than never swing at all." "Right, right," Colbert said with a nod, though his tone made it clear he wasn't really listening. "But don't you think there's a difference between taking risks and, well, overacting? Some critics have suggested you've turned acting into a kind of performance art, and not necessarily the good kind." The audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the playful teasing they expected. There was an edge to Colbert's tone, something personal, almost cruel. Cage straightened in his chair, gripping the armrests. "Stephen, I've been acting for over 4 decades. I've worked with some of the most respected directors in the business. I don't think it's fair to reduce my entire career to a few cherry-picked moments people like to laugh at online." "Oh, I'm not reducing your whole career," Colbert said with a wave of his hand. "I'm just saying maybe, just maybe, you've become a bit of a caricature of yourself. When people think Nicolas Cage, they don't think Oscar winner anymore. They think crazy eyes and screaming about bees." The reference to the Wicker Man drew a few nervous chuckles from the audience, but Cage wasn't laughing. His jaw tightened. You could see the struggle in his expression, the fight to stay composed. "You know what, Stephen?" he said finally. "I think you're missing the point. Those moments you're talking about come from genuine emotion and commitment. I don't apologize for giving everything I have to a role, even if it makes some people uncomfortable." Colbert's smirk widened. "Uncomfortable? Is that what we're calling it now? Because I think most people would call it hilarious. In fact, didn't you once say you wanted to reinvent acting? How's that working out for you?" The words hit like daggers. Cage's breathing grew heavier as he fought to contain his anger. The audience was silent now, sensing that something was going very wrong. "I said I wanted to expand the possibilities of what acting could be," Cage replied, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "I wanted to push boundaries, to find new ways to express human emotion. If that makes me a target for people who prefer their entertainment bland and predictable, so be it." But Colbert pressed on, ignoring every warning sign. "Don't you think audiences deserve better than watching what looks like a mental breakdown on screen? I mean, Vampire's kiss, the cockroach, the accent. It was so bizarre people still can't tell if you were serious or just messing with everyone. That was the line. The moment he crossed from teasing into outright insult, Cage's face changed like a brewing storm, his eyes narrowing, lips pressed thin. When he spoke, his voice carried decades of experience and pride. "You know what, Stephen? I think I know what's happening here. You're trying to get a reaction out of me. You want me to lose my temper on your show so you can have your little viral moment. Well, congratulations. You're getting close." The tension was electric. Cameras zoomed in, sensing television history in the making, but Colbert mistook Cage's warning for weakness and pushed further. "Oh, come on, Nicholas. Can't you take a little criticism? I thought actors were supposed to have thick skin. Or maybe that's just the good ones." The insult hung in the air like poison. Cage stood slowly, his chair scraping loudly across the floor. When he spoke, his voice was calm but burning with fury. "Thick skin? You want to talk about thick skin, Stephen? I've been in this business since I was a teenager. I've had critics tear apart my work. I've had directors scream at me. I've had studios try to destroy my career. But you know what I've never had? Someone invite me onto their show just to humiliate me for cheap laughs." Colbert's expression shifted slightly, but he still didn't back down. "Nicholas, sit down. You're being a little dramatic, don't you think? This is just a conversation." "A conversation?" Cage shot back, still standing. "A conversation is built on mutual respect. What you're doing is putting me on trial for the crime of caring about my craft." The studio was dead silent. You could hear the hum of the lights, the faint whir of the cameras. Even the crew seemed frozen, unsure what to do. Colbert leaned back, that smug grin still plastered on his face. "Look, Nicholas, I'm sorry if you're feeling attacked. But these are legitimate questions about your career choices. Your fans deserve to know why you've made some of the decisions you've made." "My fans?" Cage's voice cracked with emotion. "My fans don't need you to speak for them, Stephen. My fans understand that I've spent my entire career giving them something genuine, something real. I don't phone it in. I don't play it safe. I give everything I have to every role, even if that means some people mock me for it." "But that's exactly my point," Colbert continued, his voice dripping with condescension. "Maybe it's time to start playing it a little safer. Maybe it's time to admit that some of your choices just haven't worked out the way you hoped." Cage's hands were shaking, not from fear, but from pure, contained rage. "You want me to admit I've made mistakes? Fine, I've made mistakes. Every actor has. But I've also created characters people still remember decades later. I've pushed the boundaries of what's possible in cinema. I've taken risks most actors wouldn't dare take." "And how's that working out for your career?" Colbert asked with mock concern. "When was the last time you were in a truly successful film? Or got a role that wasn't just capitalizing on your reputation as the crazy guy?" The question hit like a slap. Cage's entire body tensed, and for a moment, it looked like he might walk off the set. Instead, he laughed. A bitter, hollow laugh that echoed through the silent studio. "You know what, Stephen? I get it now. You're not interested in having a real conversation about acting or creativity or art. You want your little sound bite, your viral moment where Nicolas Cage loses his mind on television." "That's not true," Colbert protested weakly. "I'm genuinely curious about your artistic process." "My artistic process?" Cage's voice grew louder, sharper. "My artistic process is about finding truth in every moment. It's about being vulnerable and real, even when it's uncomfortable. It's about digging into a character and finding something deeper, something that connects with people on a human level." Colbert cut in. "But don't you think your version of truth sometimes comes across as unhinged? Like when you're screaming about alphabets or declaring yourself a vampire? Is that really connecting with people or just confusing them?" The jab was deliberate, and it landed. Cage's expression shifted from anger to hurt, then to something like pity. You know what the real tragedy is, Stephen? You're supposed to be an intelligent man. You understand comedy, performance, entertainment, but you're so obsessed with getting cheap laughs that you've forgotten what it's all about. Oh, really? Colbert replied, his tone thick with sarcasm. And what's it all about, then? The point, Cage said, leaning forward, is that everything I do comes from love. Love for the craft, love for the story, love for the audience. When I give everything to a role, when I throw myself completely into it, it's because I believe the audience deserves that honesty. They deserve an actor who isn't afraid to look foolish, to go to dark places, to be completely real. Colbert rolled his eyes. Come on, Nicholas. Are you really saying that when you're running around screaming about bees, you're doing it out of love for your audience? Yes, Cage exploded, his voice echoing through the studio. Yes, I am. Because that character, in that moment, is experiencing genuine terror and confusion and rage. If I don't commit to that completely, if I hold back because I'm worried about looking silly, then I'm lying to the audience. I'm giving them something false. It's just a movie, Nicholas, Colbert said dismissively. It's not real life. You don't have to actually lose your mind to play someone who's losing his. Cage stared at him, silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, but cold and full of disappointment. That's exactly the kind of thinking that's killing cinema, Stephen. This idea that we should just show up, hit our marks, say our lines, and cash the check. That's not acting. Then what is it? Colbert challenged. It's transformation, Cage replied. It's becoming someone else entirely. It's discovering parts of yourself you didn't know existed. It's risk. It's vulnerability. It's putting yourself out there, even when you know people will judge you for it. The studio fell utterly silent. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate. For the first time since the interview began, Colbert looked uneasy. Look, Nicholas, he said finally, shifting in his chair. I think you're taking this too seriously. We're just talking about your career. There's no need to get so worked up. Worked up? Cage's voice rose again, shaking with emotion. You've spent 20 minutes tearing apart everything I've worked for, everything I believe in. And you think I'm getting worked up? Stephen, this is my life's work you're mocking. 4 decades of questionable choices, Colbert added with a smirk. That was it. The final straw. Cage's face went completely still. When he spoke, his voice was so quiet, the microphones barely caught it. You know what, Stephen? I think we're done here. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. His tone was calm, but there was an unmistakable finality to it. The kind that chills a room. The entire studio seemed to stop breathing. Colbert chuckled nervously and shuffled his cue cards. Come on, Nicholas. Don't be like that. We still have a few minutes left. Why don't you tell us about your new movie? That's why you're here, right? No, Cage said simply, still standing. I'm not going to sit here while you mock my life's work for the entertainment of your audience. I'm not your dancing monkey. Dancing monkey? Colbert repeated, feigning surprise. Nicholas, you're being paranoid. This is just a normal interview. Sit down, take a breath. A normal interview? Cage's voice thundered. When was the last time you had a guest on this show and spent the entire time telling them how terrible they were at their job? I never said you were terrible, Colbert protested weakly. You didn't have to say it, Cage shot back. You've been implying it from the moment I sat down. Every question, every smirk, every comment, all designed to make me look like a fool. Well, congratulations. You've succeeded. The audience was frozen. Some looked down at their phones, wondering if they should start recording. Others stared wide-eyed, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Colbert tried one last time to regain control. Nicholas, I think you're overreacting. We're just talking about your career. If you can't handle a little criticism, maybe you're in the wrong business. If I can't handle criticism, Cage's voice roared back. Stephen, I've been handling criticism for 40 years. I've been called everything you can imagine. I've been mocked, ridiculed, and dismissed by critics who wouldn't know genuine artistry if it bit them in the face, Cage said sharply. But you know what? I've never had someone invite me onto their show under the pretense of promoting my work, only to spend the entire time trying to humiliate me. I'm not trying to humiliate you, Colbert said quickly, though even he seemed to realize how hollow the words sounded. Then what would you call it? Cage demanded. What would you call spending 20 minutes attacking my performances, my choices, my entire approach to acting? What would you call reducing 4 decades of work to a handful of internet memes? Colbert's mask was starting to slip. His practiced television smile wavered, and for the first time, he looked genuinely uncomfortable. Look, Nicholas, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. Why don't we start over? Start over? Cage laughed, but there was no humor in it. Stephen, you can't unring a bell. You can't unsay the things you've said. You can't take back the disrespect you've shown me and my work. Disrespect? Colbert's tone grew defensive. I never disrespected you. I was asking legitimate questions about your career choices. Legitimate questions? Cage repeated, incredulous. You asked if I ever watch my own movies and cringe. You called my performances memes. You suggested I'd become a caricature of myself. You told me audiences deserve better than watching me have mental breakdowns on screen. If that's not disrespect, then what is? The studio fell silent. Even the production crew seemed frozen, unsure of how to handle what was unfolding before them. Colbert looked around desperately, as if searching for an escape. Nicholas, he said weakly, I think you're taking this way too personally. This is just television, just entertainment. Just entertainment? Cage's voice dropped, quiet, but edged with danger. Stephen, this is my life, my passion, everything I've worked for since I was a teenager. And you, sitting there in your comfortable chair, making jokes about my dedication to my craft, that's not entertainment. That's an attack on everything I believe in. But Nicholas, Colbert tried again, surely you can see the humor in some of your more intense performances. I mean, even you have to admit some of them are a little over the top. Over the top? Cage's voice rose again. You know what's over the top, Stephen. Inviting someone onto your show and spending the entire time tearing them down. Using your platform to mock and ridicule a guest who came here in good faith, that's over the top. Colbert was starting to panic. This was clearly not going how he'd planned. Look, maybe we should take a commercial break and talk about this off camera. No, Cage said firmly. We're not taking a break. We're going to finish this right here, right now. You wanted to put me on trial for being passionate about my work? Fine. Let's finish the trial. Nicholas, please! Colbert's voice was almost pleading now. Let's just move on. Let's talk about your new movie. My new movie? Cage laughed bitterly. Why would I want to talk about my new movie with someone who clearly has no respect for anything I've ever done? Why would I give you another opportunity to mock that too? The tension in the studio was unbearable. Camera operators zoomed in, knowing they were capturing something unforgettable. Colbert was sweating now, his carefully crafted on-screen persona crumbling in real time. Nicholas, I'm sorry if you feel like I've been unfair, he stammered. That wasn't my intention. Your intention? Cage's voice was cutting. Your intention was crystal clear from the moment I sat down. You wanted a reaction. You wanted to push me until I snapped so you could have your viral moment. Well, congratulations, you got it. That's not true, Colbert protested weakly. Isn't it? Cage shot back, his voice rising again. Then explain why every single question was designed to make me look foolish. Explain why you spent 20 minutes attacking my work instead of actually talking about my new project. Colbert had no answer. He sat speechless as Cage continued. You know what the real tragedy is here, Stephen? You had the chance to have a real conversation with someone who's dedicated his entire life to the craft of acting. You could have asked me about my process, my inspirations, what drives me to take risks. Instead, you turned it into a comedy routine at my expense. I was just trying to be entertaining, Colbert said desperately. Entertaining? Cage repeated, disgusted. You think humiliating your guest is entertaining? You think mocking someone's life's work is funny? Let me tell you something, Stephen. Real entertainment comes from genuine human connection, from honesty, vulnerability, truth. What you've done here tonight isn't entertainment. It's cruelty. The studio was deathly silent. Even the audience had stopped breathing. Colbert looked around helplessly, but there was nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. Nicholas, he tried one last time. I really think you're overreacting. Overreacting? Cage's voice was quiet now, but colder than ever. Stephen, I've given you more respect than you deserve. I've tried to have a civilized conversation while you've attacked everything I hold dear. If that's overreacting, then I'm guilty as charged. He started to walk toward the edge of the stage, then paused, and turned back one last time. You know what, Stephen? I actually feel sorry for you. Because you're so focused on getting cheap laughs that you've forgotten what it means to be human. You've forgotten what it means to treat people with dignity and respect. And that's not just a failure as a talk show host. It's a failure as a person. With that, Nicolas Cage walked off the set, leaving Stephen Colbert sitting alone at his desk, speechless and humiliated. The studio stayed silent for what felt like an eternity before someone finally had the presence of mind to cut to a commercial break. What started as a routine promotional interview had turned into one of the most uncomfortable moments in television history, all because a talk show host forgot that the person sitting across from him was a human being with feelings, dreams, and 4 decades of devotion to his craft. So there you have it. The full story of how Nicolas Cage stood up to Stephen Colbert's relentless mockery and walked off the set with his dignity intact.